Good afternoon, Northwest Florida. Welcome to Eating the Elephant, where we talk about Hurricane Michael recovery and insurance tips, things you need to know as we all get back to normal at some point after this storm. And we call this series Eating the Elephant because it's an elephant. We can only eat one bite-sized piece at a time. So we try to do just that and break this down into bite-sized pieces. I'd like to start out by saying I hope everybody is having a happy Mardi Gras season. For those of you that are into such things, we spent the weekend at the beach and having the Dominic Q parade and festivities out there. I hope you're able to get out there and enjoy some of the local flavor and maybe get away from the hurricane for a little while and just have some kind of silly fun. Today we're going to talk about Packout and inventory services, storing your stuff, things like that. I think some people have learned some lessons that they probably didn't want to know, and we'd like to give you the benefit of those if we can. I want to start out by saying one of the many services that was offered to people and is still being offered to people, I call it just sort of Packout as a general term, but these are services that in some cases can come inventory the things in your home. Sometimes they will inventory and separate the good from the bad. The things that are damaged and wet they'll throw out and inventory those, and then they'll pack and store the things that can be salvaged. And of course they charge a fee for this. This is one of those things that has caused some consternation because it's a good service and a lot of people have needed it. Unfortunately, a lot of people have signed a lot of contracts under pressure in a panic immediately after the storm, and so I'd like to review a little bit about what these services do and don't do and what some of the potential problems and pitfalls are, and so hopefully you can avoid those. First of all, it's a simple solution. If somebody approaches you with a clipboard and says, hey, we can come in, we can separate all your stuff, and we can take away the stuff that's good and store it for you, and don't worry, we'll take care of it only to the extent that the insurance company will pay for it. Sounds really good, especially when you're staring at a tree that's just come through your living room after a hurricane. It is simple. It's nice to have one service that will handle both the inventory, the packing, the moving, and the storage. That can be very convenient for you. And it's very quick. They're already here. And finding places to store things, finding movers was a real challenge in the, say, first couple of months, maybe 2.5 months after the storm. So if somebody's there willing to help you with your problem, it can be a good option. However, like we found out with an awful lot of people that showed up with a clipboard right after the storm, there's a lot of profiteering going on and some bad behavior, and we want to alert you to that. Some of the cons that we've seen are there is no price when you sign these contracts up front, and we've talked about the perils of assignment of benefits, or AOB, and a lot of these contracts had AOB provisions, and that's a problem, so you want to watch out for something like that before you let somebody come and get all your stuff. Even if you do not have an assignment of benefits, you're still in a difficult position because the service that you're paying or that wants you to pay them, they've got your stuff and they can hold it hostage. We've seen this hostage taking process a couple of times where there's been some disagreement about the price, or somebody says, oh, well, you told me it was going to be free storage and now you're charging me $300 a month and now that's another $1,800. I don't think that's fair. Oh, well, you didn't read the fine print of the contract. I'm not going to pay you. Okay, well, we're just going to keep your stuff and we're going to keep charging you $300 a month to store it. It's brought out some bad behavior in some people. The hostage taking is real, and I will tell you that we've seen some pretty dramatic billing. For a 2,900 square foot home, we saw a Packout bill of almost $200,000, and we saw a Packout bill for somebody at the beach that had fairly modest damage, that the Packout bill at this point is $72,000, but the stuff that they're holding, according to the homeowner, is probably only worth $50 or $60. So that can be a little bit difficult to justify if you're the homeowner, having to pay $72,000 for $60,000 worth of stuff when you could go out and buy new stuff. So the biggest problem that people don't understand, that I really want to get across to all of you, is these services are going to be paid for by your insurance company, but I'm going to say they're going to be paid for with your money. They're going to come out of your insurance proceeds, out of the Coverage C contents portion of your policy. There has been only one exception I've seen where a Packout service was sent in by the insurance company, billed a very substantial amount, over $100,000, and that's going to leave the homeowner short. And it looks like, since the insurance company sent them, they're going to be willing to negotiate and pay actually above the Coverage C limit that was allowed on the policy. I don't think that's common at all. I certainly wouldn't. I certainly wouldn't count on that. Just remember that all of this money that you spend on getting things packed and stored and moved around, whether it's storage units, storage buildings, the little pod units, all of that stuff has to be paid for somewhere out of your insurance policy. So it is going to reduce your coverage C, and it's going to reduce the amount of money you have to buy new things. So if you had very severe damage and you're concerned that you're going to reach that coverage C limit, this is something you need to jump on right now. And you need to talk to your Packout service, make sure you've got a good number from them, and make sure you're not accruing really, really expensive storage charges. If you are, you may want to consider sort of downsizing this process and maybe getting some on-site storage like a pod unit or something like that. I've seen lots and lots of pod units and storage containers and things like that come online, and those prices have come down by more than 50%. So you might be able to have better options, especially if you're going to be out of your home for a very long period of time. You don't want to just continue to pay very high rates of storage if you don't need to. There is a kind of an exception to this that I think we found a lot of good use for, and that's what I would call an inventory-only service. Some of these are the same companies that do what I just said, but instead of going in and separating your things and packing them and all of that, they simply go in and provide an inventory, typically an inventory of damaged items. This can be good if you've had a significant portion of your home collapse, and it can be daunting for people to do something like that, and it can be a very emotional process. The folks that do this work can be very, very expert. They're extremely detailed, and they're going to be less likely than you to leave money on the table, meaning they'll be less likely to leave out little details that once you add a bunch of those details together, which seem like very, very small items, they can eventually add up. And these inventory services can often do a really good job of getting all those little tiny items that you may overlook, and just that value right there might pay for their service. However, there's no reason you shouldn't submit the bill for their services to your insurance company just as you would somebody laying carpet or hanging drywall or putting on a roof. It's a service that you need, that is required following a storm, and just because you don't want to do it and want to outsource that to someone else doesn't mean your insurance company shouldn't pay for it. So if you're one of those people, if you think you need some help with inventory, don't be afraid to, especially we've had some people that have got some physical limitations. We had somebody with a hip replacement that wasn't going to go crawling around the debris in his home and try to inventory it. He hired an inventory service and so far has been very happy with that result. So don't hesitate to do something like that if you need to. If you get resistance from your insurance company on paying for something like that, maybe give me a call at my office and let's talk a little bit of strategy and some things you can do to maybe see if we can get them to change their mind. It really shouldn't be hard to do. It's a very legitimate cost and a very legitimate service if it's something that you want them to do. Finally, what I want to talk to you about with these services is their contracts. I think you need to be very cautious about several things. Number one, you need to look for the storage time that is going to be permitted. What they'll tell you is they'll come in and they'll say, oh, well, we're just going to do what the insurance company will pay for. Again, let's remember that this is coming out of your insurance proceeds and out of your coverage C limit. So if they say, oh, storage is included, well, that's great. Is there a time limit on that included storage? A contract we looked at recently said, oh, well, storage is included for free for 6 months. After 6 months, you may get stuck. So the problem that we had for this one was the storage charges for this particular client was going to be $2,600 a month after the 6-month period of time. And fortunately, we're not at the 6-month mark, and she's making other arrangements to move her stuff. So look at the storage. Also look at the additional fees that may be provided. A lot of these services will have an additional fee for pickup and inventory. They'll have an additional fee for delivery. So when you're looking over the contract for these services, you need to be very careful. And if you've already signed one, it's a good time to dig that contract out and to scrutinize it and to make sure that the charges on there are not going to eat up all of your coverage C limit. Damage. Who's going to be responsible for damage to your stuff while it's missing from your place, while it's in storage? Most of these services use pretty much a standard that's used by moving companies that's a dollar per pound. I don't know what the price per pound is right now, but they charge by the pound. That's probably not sufficient. And your insurance that's on your home right now may apply in full or in part to all of your coverage, to all of your items that are in storage. You may have adequate coverage, you may not. So you need to call your agent and ask them about your coverage and make sure that your homeowner's insurance coverage that's in place still applies to coverage off-site and to storage of your materials in another place. It should. Now, whether it applies fully or only partially is something that you'll need to get that answer directly from your insurance company or your insurance agent. And don't be afraid to ask. Again, the coverage that you're going to get from the provider is almost always going to be very, very inadequate. So take a look at that. It's another consideration for you if you're considering canceling your homeowner's policy. Say you're going to tear your home down because it's severely damaged. If you do that, you'll lose coverage on your contents, and you'll need to discuss that with your insurance provider as well. Finally, you need to make sure it doesn't have an assignment of benefits provision. I have preached and preached and preached on assignment of benefits, as has, fortunately, our CFO, Jimmy Petronas. Jimmy obviously is a local boy, and we're very proud of him, and he's moved up the food chain and is doing an excellent job in the CFO's position in Tallahassee. And every time he gets on camera, it seems like he rants pretty good about the abuse of AOB. I'm not going to review all of that because I've talked about it in several previous episodes. You're welcome to go back and pick up on those if you like. Or if you need me to send you some materials, you can shoot me an email, trey@huttinsurance.com, and I'll be glad to send you some materials that tell you why an AOB is a bad idea. We're going to close it up there. I'm going to talk Wednesday if you have real estate considerations, so you're looking at maybe selling your property with damage. We're going to talk about assignment of benefits, assignment of claims. We're going to talk about if it's possible to sell your home with damage from the hurricane. And not only can you, but should you, whether it's a good idea in your particular situation. And we'll review a lot of that on Wednesday at our normal time of 8 o'clock. Thanks very much. I hope you'll have a lovely Sunday evening, and we'll see you on Wednesday.